Good morning, bro. Today we're talking about Deep Work by Cal Newport, and this was a very interesting book, and it talks about focus and sort of this new, more correct way to get your work done. To understand the book, he talks about two main terms throughout the story. The first one is shallow work, and shallow work is described as non-cognitively demanding, logistic-style tasks, often performed while distracted. It's like there's not much effort that needs to be put into it, and it's not hard to recreate, and it doesn't create much value in the world. Okay, so it's easy to replicate, and it doesn't create much value in the world. Deep work is sort of the opposite, and deep work is professional activities performed in a sort of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capacities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. So imagine like a high-level athlete, and you could characterize his shallow and deep work tasks. If their deep work tasks is probably practicing, it's working on their specific skills, because that's only something they and a few other people can do at such a high level. A shallow task for this person would be like filling up their water bottles, or checking their schedule, checking texts, etc. Okay? So the first chapter of this book is how deep work is valuable. Okay? So in the modern day, we need two things to succeed: the ability to quickly master hard things, the ability to produce at an elite level in terms of both quality and speed. So basically, learn things and then implement things well. Okay, that makes sense. Deep work helps with both. So he then gives this equation about quality equals time times focus intensity. So you have a bunch of, you're really focused, working on whatever you're working on, and then as the time goes on, your quality goes up. Okay? Kind of an antithesis up to this is people who work in very social settings. So like a CEO of a company spends most of his time managing people. So if he were to sit down and do a bunch of work, his skill would be wasted, because that's not what his job is. Does that make sense? So for people who, and this is for a vast majority of people, for people who aren't social, like for people who don't need to be social workers, then use deep work. And even social workers use deep work in other areas to try to improve. Chapter 2, he says that it's rare. He talks about this thing called the metric black hole, and the metric black hole is the idea that deep work can't really be measured, because it's a skill, not really a objective thing. Does that make sense? So it's harder to tell if deep work helps or not in via a mathematical, logistical standpoint, but he argues that it's still very helpful, and I agree with him. And then he talks about the principle of least resistance. When there's no direction, people will do what's easiest. And then when there's no direction, people will do visible busy work, And the idea behind this is most companies they focus on productivity, right? And then if they don't see you being busy, they assume that you're not being busy. But deep work could look like just sitting in front of your computer screen, literally just thinking about what the heck you're gonna write next. Okay? Because it's rare and it works, it enforces chapter 1. It's valuable as hell. Like, it's super valuable. Being able to focus and give out all of your mental capacity for a long time, that's really valuable. Third part, it's meaningful. So he gives some examples. He says neurologically, this guy called Winifred Gallagher said that the skillful management of attention is the sine qua non of the good life. Meaning, if you're in a period of time where your attention is on the same thing for a long time, deep work, it's very good to do deep work. Okay? What else did I say? It also, okay. So, it also puts people, it's kind of like a state of flow for you athletes or musicians out there who understand what I'm talking about. It's that sort of feeling when you're working on something and you just keep going and going, and it's cool. It's a cool feeling, and it's really, really like productive. You work super well. Philosophically, it feels super good to craft something well. If you're spending your time switching from email to homework to email to homework to email to homework, you probably didn't get any homework done. You probably only sent 3 emails. Crafting, like spending hours and then crafting something well, and then being proud that you crafted something well, that's something really cool to be proud of. So he says the deep life is the good life. So it's valuable, it's rare, and it's meaningful. It's valuable because it puts all of your mental capacities into something so you can build something well and fast. It's rare because how many people do you see do this? And it's meaningful because it probably will make you feel better about yourself. So the rules of deep work. So Cal Newport described like 3 reasons why you should do deep work, and hopefully you're convinced. So these are the 4 rules as to how you should pursue your deep work. Okay? Rule number 1, work deeply, and he has these multiple kinds of depth philosophies: monastic, bimodal, rhythmic, and journalistic. So monastic is basically when you spend all of your time on deep work, and it's the people who go into log cabins in the mountain for like months, and then they just grind and they get a bunch of stuff done. The second one is bimodal. Bimodal frees up more time for other things, but it's also long periods of deep work. So it's like a couple days of deep work, and then go to other stuff, and then days, and then other stuff. So it's more split into like half and half, or that bi idea. Okay. And then there's rhythmic, and rhythmic is kind of the idea of like a schedule. So like you do it every day. I like to do my deep work, at least for this business, in the morning, because I have the best attention here, and I have the best attention here, and I just like recording in the morning. I like the nighttime. So that's why I do it. And then there's the journalistic, and the journalistic one is only for, he says, very advanced deep workers, because it's random, if that makes sense. You deep work whenever you have the chance to, and it's very hard to get into that deep work flow because it takes time to get into that flow. So he doesn't recommend that for the general public, only for people who can switch their attention spans well. I like to use the rhythmic. I think the rhythmic one is the easiest one to produce, especially for people in school. So that's why I use it. Some tips he adds to help are to ritualize it, to like schedule it out and make sure that you can understand when it's supposed to happen. Grand gestures, so like spending a lot of money or saying you're going to go to this place and then using that as an accountability measure and a tool to boost your work. And okay, he talks about feedback on other people, and I think what I got from this is deep work alone, but once you're done with the deep work and you exit, go get feedback and use that shallower time to discuss and talk with other people. He says to focus on the wildly important, so basically prioritize well. To act on lead measures, essentially tangible things that you can do to improve your, like those are the things that you should go off of, not necessarily subjective things. So for example, if you want to increase customer happiness, instead of increasing customer happiness, do something that would increase customer happiness, like writing notes to them every day, etc. Keep a scoreboard, keep a fun scoreboard. I like to use a habit tracker. It's on Notion, and it's fun. I like seeing boxes checked off as to what I've done today. And then cadence of accountability. I think that's what I wrote down, right? So I think that's what that means is the idea of, if you have a certain time every day, that's gonna keep you more accountable. If you like put it in your routine, it's gonna help keep you structured and more aligned with your goals and the work that you're trying to produce. In his argument for rule number 1, the work deeply, the work that deep work replaces is usually shallow. So when I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't really do anything, I would just, I would wake up, probably, this is like a year or two ago, I would wake up, scroll on YouTube, watch YouTube videos, and then at 7:20, go make my lunch and then go to school. So it usually is shallow, so you don't really have to worry about that stuff that is conflicting with your deep work. Does that make sense? Rest, he talks about rest, and that it's important to rest from your deep work. You're probably not going to be able to do it all day. And with downtime, he says that downtime aids thought and downtime helps recharge. Downtime is your almost, I want to say shallow tasks, but it's the ones that recharge you. It's downtime. It's sports, it's family. Well, actually, if sports aren't your deep work, then sports are. But if sports are your deep work, probably a good book, like my mom calls them bubblegum books, just like quick stories that you can read, or spending time with family, friends, going for walks, things like that. Okay, Rule number 2, embrace boredom. And one of the things he talks about in this rule is taking breaks from focus, not taking breaks from distraction. And it makes sense in this modern day. We like to take a lot of breaks from distraction because we're always on our phones. So if you learn to upgrade, like you keep leveling up your skill of focus, then you won't be distracted as often, and you can take breaks from focus to be distracted. It's more of a conscious choice, and it's definitely more helpful than taking breaks from distraction to try to be focused. This works even if your job is a lot of shallow work. So, okay. Sorry. This works even if your job is a lot of shallow work. So for like people who spend their days Gmailing, schedule your blocks so you have like a 5-minute, it's like the, what is this, the reverse it's the reverse Pomodoro technique. You have 5 minutes of where you're on Gmail and working, and then 25 minutes where you're just off the internet completely. And this should help both your attention and it should help your attention span and your mental health, so because you're not focusing on as much stuff, so you get to focus on the wildly important. Oh yeah, to level this up, use it at home. Try to schedule blocks where you're not allowed to use your technology, and that could be super useful in like developing social relationships or passion projects or things that you really want to get done. Productive meditation. This is the idea of like solving problems while moving. So doing a fun activity that helps you. So like running, walking, going for a swim. Sorry, where was I? Running, swimming. Yes, yeah. I like to, if I could swim more, swimming is super useful for this because it's totally like, you're just alone basically. And all you have to focus on is your breath, and then you're just alone with your thoughts, and that's all it is. So it's very relaxing to swim, and it's helpful for your like physical like relaxation, recovery. It's helpful for your recovery. It's a very good active recovery method. And then beware of distractions and looping. So try not to, or notice when you're being distracted or you're focusing on the same thing over and over and over again. And then structure your deep thinking. Okay? Rule number 3, quit social media. And so he talks about the main reasons why people do social media, and then mainly it's for entertainment and for shallow friends, like not friends with depth, but more shallow ones. The any benefit approach to tools is bad, and the craftsman approach to tools is good. This means that when taking into account social media, you can say, oh my gosh, it gives me entertainment. I love it so much. It's so much fun. It helps me with my friends. Generally, it's not important to what you need to work on, like what you really want to work on. So like combat, or this studying that you have to get done, or this project that you really want to finish. Usually social media is important to it. If it aligns with your goals, if you're like social or you're in a new place, use it. And I mean, that makes sense. Social media is used, like you can take those shallow friends in this new place that you're going to and then give them more depth. But if it doesn't align with your goals, and it usually doesn't, don't use it. Okay? Meaningful facial connections are built in person, and that makes sense. I think I have better conversations when I'm talking to someone in person than when I'm on a FaceTime call with them. So that's just me. Then he talks about the law of the vital few. 80% of an effect is from 20% of the causes. So usually most of your distractions from people, or most of people's distractions, is from 20% of the causes. So you could be doing 100% of distracting things. 20% of it is social media. 20%, that 80% is going to be caused from social media. I'm telling you right now. So that's not gonna, it's very detrimental to focus. And then he says, to not use it to entertain yourself. And then, because if you use social media to entertain yourself, you could probably be using your time better, and you probably could entertain yourself in different, better ways. And then finally, for this rule, he says to live, don't exist. Actually feel what's in the world. Actually understand what's going on, rather than being in your phone and kind of being just there walking throughout your world. Rule number 4 is to drain the shallows. And it goes back to this idea of scheduling your day. So making sure that you have specific times where you should be into these deep work states. He asks, how long could it take a person your age to learn and do this? In months. If it's small, do it deliberately. If it's big, do it yourself. So what this means is, if it takes it, like if you give your task to one of your friends, how long could it take to learn it? If it's a small amount of months, then it's a shallow task. Like if it's 1 or 2 months, it's a shallow task. I mean, if it's less than that, it's also a shallow task. If it takes many, many months, like 10 or 15, it's a deep work task, and that's what you should focus on. You should try to give yourself a shallow work budget, or ask your boss for a shallow work budget. Like, how much shallow work should I be doing per day? How many emails should I be sending per day? How many phone calls, etc. Okay, how many meetings do I have to go to? Try to schedule it out so you have as much time as possible on your deep work. Finish by a set time. That helps in aiding that downtime sort of rest period. So you concentrate for a long time, and then that set time comes, and then you can just relax and you feel proud of yourself because you made it to your set time. And the last part is to become hard to reach by, number 1, making it hard for people to send you emails or send you communications. 2, clarify well ahead in your email or communications that you probably will not be there. Or 3, don't respond. Okay? And yeah, don't respond. So those are your 3. Those are your 4 rules. Rule number 1 is to work deeply. Number 2 is to embrace boredom. Number 3 is to quit social media. Number 4 is to drain the shallows. The reasons why it's valuable, why deep work is important, is because it's valuable, it's rare, and it's meaningful. And the deep life is the good life. So let's go do some deep work.